All right, so DEPIN, right?
Mhm.
Decentralized physical infrastructure networks. It's like everywhere you look these days.
Yeah, it really does seem like it's having a moment.
It does, it really does. But like, what is it really about? You know,
Yeah, is it substance or just hype?
exactly. We've got a
Mhm.
ton of stuff to go through here. You sent me all these articles and papers, even a YouTube video.
Yeah, I figured let's go deep on this one.
Let's do it, a deep dive.
Yeah.
So maybe the best place to start is like, what is it at its core?
Hmm. Well, to me, DAPIN is about, I guess you could say, shifting power. Like instead of having these big corporations controlling all this essential internet infrastructure, things like servers and cables and all that, DAPIN is trying to distribute that control,
Oh, interesting.
which could potentially make things more efficient, more resilient, more affordable.
It's kind of like taking that sharing economy idea
Hmm.
and applying it to the internet's backbone.
Exactly. Instead of Uber for rides, it's DPIN for, I don't know, everything that makes the internet work.
I like that. Yeah, it's a good analogy. So I was looking through some of these sources,
Yeah.
and they all talk about these two main types of DCAN, physical resource networks and digital resource networks, PRNs and DRNs. Did I get that right?
You got it.
Okay, cool. So how about we start with, let's say, those physical networks, the PRNs. What's a good example of that?
Okay, so a really good example is Helium. It's a wireless network, like Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
but instead of it being run by, say, a big telecom company, people set up these hotspots, kind of like little mini cell towers, in their homes or businesses,
Yeah.
and they get rewarded with these HNT tokens for providing coverage.
So, like, I could set up a Helium hotspot
Yeah.
and potentially earn some crypto just by letting people use my Wi-Fi.
That's the idea. And as internet costs keep going up, I think a lot of people find that pretty appealing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, especially with how expensive data plans are these days.
Exactly.
So Helium is like crowdsourcing a wireless network.
Yeah.
But instead of relying on goodwill, there's an actual financial incentive.
Right, exactly. That direct reward makes a huge difference.
Makes a lot of sense. So what else is out there? Is Helium like the only game in town?
Oh, not at all. There are all sorts of fascinating PRN projects.
Okay, like what?
So there's Hive Mapper. They're all about mapping. Basically, you know how some people have dash cams in their cars?
Yeah.
Well, drivers can use those dash cams to collect mapping data.
Really?
Yeah, they drive around, capture video, and that data helps create a super accurate and up-to-date map.
That's so cool.
And they get rewarded in honey tokens for their contributions.
Wow. So you're telling me I can earn crypto just for driving around with a dash cam?
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing.
And then there's Dymo, which is another interesting one. That one lets car owners sell their vehicle data for Naticus tokens.
Wait, so like my car is generating data that's valuable to someone?
Oh, absolutely. Things like your speed, your location, your braking habits, all that stuff.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's valuable data for all sorts of companies and researchers.
So the PIN is basically taking these everyday activities, like driving or sharing Wi-Fi, and turning them into potential income streams.
That's a big part of the appeal, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially at a time when so many people are looking for ways to make extra money or have more control over their data and how it's used.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I'm seeing a lot of potential here, and I'm guessing this is just scratching the surface, right?
Oh, yeah, we haven't even gotten to the digital resource networks yet.
The DRNs, right?
Right.
Okay, so if the PRNs are all about the physical stuff, what are the DRNs about?
So DRNs are all about managing digital resources in this decentralized way. Think things like storage, computing power, bandwidth.
Oh, okay, so less about the tangible things, more about the digital world.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are some examples in that space?
Well, there's Filecoin and Arweave, which
Yeah.
are both really interesting. Basically, they let anyone rent out their unused storage space, kind of like a decentralized Dropbox or Google Drive.
Interesting.
And they get paid in FIL or AR tokens for doing so.
So instead of trusting all my data to one big company,
Mm-hmm.
I can spread it across a whole network.
Exactly. And you get rewarded for helping to make that network more robust.
Okay, I can definitely see the appeal of that, especially with all the data breaches and privacy concerns these days.
It's a big concern for a lot of people.
For sure. And it sounds like Debian might be part of the solution.
I think it has the potential to be, yeah.
So beyond storage, what other kinds of DRNs are there?
So there are also compute networks like Akash and Render. Those let people share their computing power and earn tokens.
Like if I have a powerful gaming PC, I could rent out some of that processing power when I'm not using it.
Exactly. And then there are bandwidth networks like Theta Network,
Okay.
where users share their extra bandwidth and get rewarded.
So DePIN is kind of like returning to the internet's roots in a way, like that early vision of a more decentralized peer-to-peer network.
I think there's definitely an element of that.
But with the added benefits of blockchain technology,
Yeah. The transparency, the security, the ability to track and verify transactions, it all adds up to a really compelling proposition.
okay, I'm starting to get why people are so excited about DePIN. But, let's be real for a second. Every new technology comes with its own set of challenges and downsides. So what are the downsides of DePIN?
Well, I mean, like with anything new, there are going to be some growing pains. One of the biggest hurdles is probably just getting people on board. Getting enough users and providers to create that critical mass for the network to really thrive.
Yeah, makes sense. It's like a network is only as strong as its weakest link, right?
Exactly. And then there's the issue of technical complexity. A lot of people, they're not comfortable with blockchain or crypto wallets. It can seem intimidating.
I can totally see that.
So finding ways to make DePIN more user-friendly, more accessible, that's going to be key.
So it's not enough to build it, you have to make it easy to use.
Right, exactly. If people can't figure it out, they're not going to use it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing regulations play a role too, right? Like the whole crypto space is still kind of the Wild West in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. The regulatory landscape is still very uncertain, and that can make it hard for projects to get funding or even just operate without fear of running afoul of the law.
Right, it's hard to plan for the future when you don't know what the rules are going to be.
Exactly. It's a big challenge.
Okay, so those are some of the hurdles, but there's still a lot of potential.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think DEPIN has the potential to be truly transformative.
We were talking earlier about how some experts think DEPIN could be even bigger than gaming.
Yeah, it's a bold claim, I know.
Yeah, it is. But I'm starting to see how it could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Gaming is huge, don't get me wrong.
For sure.
But it still caters to a specific audience.
Mm-hmm.
DEPIN, on the other hand, it's about infrastructure.
Right.
And everyone needs infrastructure.
It's true. Everyone needs internet access. Everyone needs energy.
Exactly. If DEPIN can make those things more efficient and more affordable,
It could have a ripple effect across the entire world.
exactly, it could change everything.
Okay. I'm definitely starting to see the bigger picture here. But before we get too carried away with the DePIN revolution, I think it'd be helpful to dive into some specific projects.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
And see how all of this is actually playing out in the real world.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so we've talked about the basics of DePIN.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
The potential, the challenges, the whole 9 yards.
Big picture.
But I'm really curious to hear about some actual projects, like real-world stuff.
Yeah, let's dive into some specifics.
What are some of the companies or projects that are really pushing the boundaries of DePIN?
Well, one that's been making a lot of noise lately is PQ. They're actually, believe it or not, this second largest developer ecosystem in all of Web3.
PAQ. Okay, yeah, that name rings a bell.
Yeah, and a lot of people see them as kind of a linchpin in the whole DePIN movement.
Interesting. And why is that? What makes them so special? Well, for one thing, they're specifically designed for DePIN and this concept called machine RWA, machine-to-machine real-world assets.
Okay, machine RWA, now that's a new one.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful.
What exactly does that mean?
So basically, it's about machines interacting with real-world assets in a decentralized way. Like, imagine a network of autonomous drones delivering packages, all managed and coordinated through a DePIN using smart contracts.
Oh,
Or think about sensors on a farm, automatically adjusting irrigation systems based on real-time weather data.
okay.
All powered by a DePIN that rewards the people providing that data and ensures that all the transactions are secure and transparent.
So PAQ is like the platform that makes all of this possible.
That's a big part of it, yeah. One of their key strengths is that they can handle a ton of transactions, like over 100,000 per second.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and they keep the transaction costs super low, which is essential for DePIN.
Why is transaction speed so important in this context?
Well, think about it. Imagine a DePIN-powered smart grid where thousands of homes with solar panels are buying and selling energy from each other
Yeah.
every minute based on fluctuating supply and demand. You need a network that can handle all those transactions super quickly and cheaply.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So PQAQ is kind of laying the groundwork for this future
Yeah.
where machines are interacting with each other and with the real world seamlessly and efficiently, all thanks to DePIN.
Exactly. And they have this really cool feature called CREST, which is the world's first and only economy of things simulation network.
Economy of Things Simulation Network. I feel like we're getting into sci-fi territory here.
It's pretty futuristic, yeah.
What is that
Yeah.
exactly?
So basically, it's like a virtual sandbox where developers can test out their DEPIN projects before they launch them in the real world.
So that's smart.
They can simulate all sorts of complex interactions between machines, assets, data, the whole shebang.
Make sure everything works before you unleash it on the world.
Exactly. No risk of real-world consequences if something goes wrong.
It's like a flight simulator for DePIN.
I like that analogy. And it's also a place where developers can collaborate and learn from each other.
That's cool. So it's like a sandbox and a community hub all in one.
Exactly.
So is there anything else about PQ that makes it stand out in the DePIN space?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's built on the Polkadot ecosystem, which means it has this multi-chain architecture. So it can easily talk to other blockchains, which is great for collaboration and security.
And it's compatible with EVM too, right? The Ethereum virtual machine.
That's right. So developers who are already familiar with Ethereum can easily build on PQ.
So PQ is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of DePIN then.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to put it. It's got all the tools you need to build some really ambitious projects.
That's amazing. But I'm guessing PQ isn't the only player in this game.
Oh, definitely not. There are tons of other exciting projects out there.
Like what? Give me another one.
Okay, so another one that's really interesting is Nillion. They're focused on, data privacy.
Data privacy, that's a big one these days.
Absolutely. And it's only going to get bigger as we move towards a more decentralized world.
Right, because if our data isn't being held by these big tech companies anymore, then we need other ways to make sure it's safe and secure.
Exactly. And that's where Nillion comes in. Instead of relying on centralized servers, they distribute data across this vast decentralized network.
So it's like a giant distributed vault
That's a good way to think about it.
with multiple layers of security and encryption.
Yeah, it's all about making it virtually impossible for any single entity to access or control that data without proper authorization.
So even if someone managed to hack into a single node in the network, they wouldn't be able to access the whole data set.
Exactly. And they use some really cutting-edge technology to achieve this.
Like what?
Well, there's this concept called blind compute,
Blind compute, okay.
which basically involves the nodes in the network generating this blinding factor to mask the data.
So it's like unreadable without the right keys.
Exactly. And those keys are distributed across the network, so no single entity has complete control.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
And they also use a bunch of other privacy-enhancing technologies, or PTs as they're called,
PTs, okay, I like that.
to make sure that data stays safe and secure.
So Nillion is really pushing the boundaries of what's possible
Yeah,
in terms of decentralized data management.
for sure. They're paving the way for a future where we have much more control over our own data.
And that's a future I'm definitely excited about.
Me too. It's really empowering.
So we've got PKU building this infrastructure for a world of interconnected machines.
Right.
And Nillion tackling the challenges of data privacy in a decentralized world. It seems like DePIN is already producing some pretty amazing solutions to real-world problems.
It's definitely not just a theoretical concept anymore.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see it all coming together. But I'm curious about the inner workings of all of this. We keep talking about smart contracts, but I'm still not entirely clear on how they fit into the whole DePIN ecosystem.
Yeah, let's break that down a bit.
Okay.
Smart contracts are basically the backbone of DePIN. They're what make all these complex interactions and transactions possible. Remember Power Ledger, the DePIN project that enables peer-to-peer energy trading.
Yeah, the one where you can buy solar power from your neighbor.
Exactly. Well, smart contracts are what make those transactions happen. So let's say you need some extra electricity and your neighbor has some solar power they're willing to sell. A smart contract would automatically handle the whole process.
Okay.
It would track how much energy is transferred, calculate the cost based on the current market price, and execute the payment between you and your neighbor.
Wow, all automatically.
Yep, no need for a middleman or a central authority.
So the smart contract is like a digital escrow agent.
Yeah, exactly. It ensures that both parties hold up their end of the deal.
That's really clever. And that's just one example, right?
Oh yeah, there are tons of ways smart contracts can be used in DePIN.
Like what? I'm all ears.
Well, let's think about supply chains for a second. Imagine a DEPIN that tracks the journey of a product, like coffee beans or diamonds, from the farm or the mine all the way to the consumer.
Okay.
Each step of the way, it's recorded on a blockchain using smart contracts.
So you have this permanent tamper-proof record of where the product came from and how it got to you.
Exactly. Complete transparency and accountability.
Wow. So no more fake products or shady dealings.
That's the idea. And smart contracts can even automate things like customs clearance and payments, making the whole supply chain much smoother.
That's amazing. I love how DEPIN can be applied to so many different
Yeah,
areas.
it's super versatile.
What else can smart contracts do?
Okay, how about this? Imagine a bridge equipped with sensors that monitor its structural integrity.
Okay.
Those sensors could be linked to a DEPIN that uses smart contracts to automatically trigger maintenance alerts if the bridge starts showing signs of wear and tear.
So, like, if the bridge needs repairs,
Yeah.
the smart contract would notify the maintenance crew and even allocate funds for the repairs.
Precisely. It's like having this always-on super smart guardian watching over critical infrastructure.
That's brilliant. It's like DEPIN is taking the Internet of Things to a whole new level.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay. I'm convinced
Yeah,
smart contracts are the unsung heroes of the DEPIN revolution.
I completely agree. They're doing so much important work behind the scenes.
They're making all of this incredible stuff possible.
They're the glue that holds it all together.
All right, so we've talked about PK, Nillion, and the magic of smart contracts.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
My brain is buzzing with DEPIN excitement.
Good, good.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to remind ourselves why this all matters.
Yeah, what's the big takeaway here? I think the key thing to remember is that DEPIN is not just about technology. It's about a fundamental shift in how we think about infrastructure.
The paradigm shift,
Exactly. It's about moving away from these centralized top-down models.
where a handful of companies control everything,
Right, and towards a more decentralized, community-driven approach.
where individuals and communities have more power and control.
Exactly. DEPIN is about empowerment. It's about collaboration.
It's about building a more resilient, equitable, and sustainable future.
That's the dream. Yeah.
It sounds pretty utopian, but I'm sure there are some real-world challenges that we need to address before we get there.
Oh, absolutely. No technological revolution is without its hurdles.
So in the final part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
we'll explore those challenges in more detail
We'll take a closer look at what it will take for DEPIN to truly live up to its potential.
and whether it really could become bigger than gaming.
That's the big question, isn't it?
Okay, I'm hooked. Can't wait to hear more. So we've explored the potential of DEPIN,
And some of the really cool projects that are already out there.
but as with anything new, there are always going to be challenges. What are some of the hurdles that DEPIN needs to overcome to reach its full potential?
Well, one of the biggest ones, and we touched on this a little earlier, is just the technical complexity of it all. Blockchain technology, decentralized systems.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is, and for the average person who just wants to use the internet or turn on their lights, trying to understand how DEPIN works,
It can feel pretty daunting,
it can be like trying to learn a whole new language.
right? It's like asking someone who just wants to drive their car
Yeah.
to explain how the engine works.
Exactly. Most people just want things to work.
They don't necessarily care about the technical details,
So a big challenge for DEPIN is going to be bridging that gap.
making it more user-friendly.
Exactly. We need intuitive interfaces, clear explanations, ways to make it accessible to everyone.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come, but only if they know how to use it.
That's a great way to put it.
And what about incentives?
Ah, yes. Incentives are crucial.
Because DEPIN relies on people contributing their resources,
Right. It does.
their storage space, their bandwidth, their computing power.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure those people are fairly compensated for their participation?
That's a really important question. And it all comes down to tokenomics, basically how the tokens are designed and distributed.
Got to find that sweet spot
Yeah.
where the network is sustainable
Mm-hmm.
and the providers are happy with their rewards.
Exactly. It's a delicate balancing act.
And of course, we can't forget about regulations,
Ah, yes. The regulatory landscape.
which is still pretty murky when it comes to crypto and blockchain.
It is, and that uncertainty can be a big problem for investors and developers.
Because it's hard to build for the future when you don't know what the rules are going to be.
It's like trying to sail a ship through uncharted waters.
Exactly. You never know what you might run into.
But despite all these challenges, I'm still incredibly optimistic about the future of DEPIN.
Me too. The potential is just too big to ignore.
I agree.
We've talked a lot about how DEPIN could be bigger than gaming.
It's a bold claim, I know.
But the more I learn about DEPIN, the more I think it could actually happen.
Because, unlike gaming, which caters to a specific audience,
DePIN is about infrastructure.
and everyone needs infrastructure.
Exactly. Everyone needs internet access, everyone needs energy,
If DEPIN can deliver on its promises,
and make those things more efficient and affordable.
it could have a truly global impact.
Yeah, it could change the world as we know it.
And as the Internet of Things keeps growing, connecting billions of devices around the world,
The demand for a decentralized and resilient infrastructure is only going to increase.
DePIN is in the perfect position to meet that demand.
It's exciting to think about a future where everything is connected.
I know, right?
Our homes, our cars, our cities,
All part of this massive decentralized network.
seamlessly interacting and exchanging data and value.
It sounds like science fiction.
But it's closer than we think.
It really is.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they be paying attention to as DePIN continues to evolve?
I would say keep an eye on the projects that are focused on solving real-world problems. Look for DePIN solutions that are user-friendly, secure, and offer good incentives for participation.
And watch the regulatory landscape closely.
Absolutely. Any changes there could have a huge impact on the whole space.
This deep dive has been an amazing journey.
It has.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this incredible world.
DePIN is so much more than just a buzzword.
It's a powerful idea with the potential to change everything.
I couldn't agree more.
Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Just this. DePIN is still in its early stages, but it's moving fast. So even if you're not a tech expert, it's worth paying attention to.
Keep learning, keep exploring.
Who knows, maybe you'll be the one to build the next big DePIN application that changes the world.
That's an inspiring thought.
I hope so.
This has been a truly enlightening conversation.
It has.
Thank you so much for joining us on this DePIN Deep Dive.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep on diving.